Stanford University.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Abbas Milani. I direct the Iranian Studies program here at Stanford. I would like to welcome you to what is our last, and certainly not the least, event for this quarter. If you add your name to this list, we send out regularly announcements for our coming events. We have a dozen events planned for next year already. Everyone from Nazila Fathi from New York Times to Mohammad Shajarian, who's going to be here on May 28th. He's not going to be singing. Shajarian is going to be talking about his work. It'll be a conversation in Persian. Those of you who don't speak Persian, I recommend start now. By then, you will be able to attend the meeting. Tonight's guest, Shahriyar Mandanipour, is not only one of the most talented Iranian writers of a generation, but I think one of the most successful if not the most successful, in making the transition from a writer in Iran to a writer in diaspora. I know of no one who came to this country with little English and little contact, and simply based on his abilities and his extreme congeniality of character and dedication to writing, have Alfred Knopf publish his novel, Censoring an Iranian Love Story. It is easily one of the most widely reviewed novels of an Iranian writer in some of the top Western American sources. He was telling me that they have contracts in 11 languages for the novel to come out, and all of this he has done in less than 3 years. And to come from Shiraz, where he ran a very successful magazine, to Boston, Harvard, Brown, and now University of Boston to do all of this is a remarkable feat. And I think I personally, as an old friend of his and as an Iranian, I feel extremely proud to watch him work and to watch him succeed. And I think if anything, greater and greater success awaits him, because he is a man of immense talent and immense dedication to the art of the novel. So, Shahriyar Mandanipour. Yes, please turn off your phone. Follow his example.
No, actually, I would like to say, because we are going to talk about censorship, it's free to turn on your cell phone. Talk about it.
We are recording it.
First of all, I would like to say thank you all for coming in this rainy, cold day in Stanford. I think I brought it, the coldness of the East Coast to the West. And I would like to thank Dr. Milani, my teacher, and when I see him, it reminds me the good days of Tehran University. Dr. Milani was maybe the youngest and the best teacher on that era after revolution in political science faculty. And he taught me on that era. He tried to taught my generation somehow that look at the world in a tragic way, not black and white. And particularly in a country, in a black and white country like Iran. I hope that I learned this lesson. From Shiraz to Stanford. When I have a talk about censorship in Iran, I have a funny story that I would like to share it with you. Once upon a time, an Iranian guy sees his friend in the street and realizes that he's so sleepy and asks him, what's wrong with you? He says, you know that I work around 16 hours a day. And when I go home, I go to my bed, and just when I pull the sheet on my face, I have a dream that I'm driving an old truck, and I have to drive from Tehran to Shiraz. It is a long way, around 600 miles. And I have to drive to, for instance, city second, the third one, fourth one, Isfahan, fifth, sixth, and at the morning, I wake up so tired and I have to go to work. Every night, I have this problem. The guy says to him, I know a psychotherapist. I'm sure that he will fix you. After once, this guy, the sleeper, sees one of the other friend and realizes that he's worse than him, too much sleepy, and asks him, what's wrong with you? He says, you know that I work around 16 hours a day. When I get home to my bed, just when I pull the sheet on my face, I saw that Brigitte Bardot comes to my dream. It is the old version. Right now you can change it to maybe Nicole Kidman or Charlie Strong. And yeah, okay, Jenny. And just until morning, we do something, yara, 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 as Americans used to say, or talking about the stories. And at the morning, so tired, I have to go to work. And every night I have this problem. He says to him, I know a psychotherapist, and he will fix you. 1 month later, he sees his friend. I forgot one part of this story. When the first guy went to the psychotherapist and told him the problem, the psychotherapist told him, okay, tonight when you are going to bed, imagine that I'm driving that old truck with you. You just drive 2/3 of the way, and then you can sleep. I would drive the car to Shiraz. And the second session, the psychotherapist has told him that imagine that we are two drivers in an old truck, so you drive half of the way and then sleep. I will drive the car, and like it. And the last session, he told him that imagine that I can drive the old truck from Tehran to Shiraz, or from, for instance, Stanford to Chicago. And you can sleep all the night. And because of it, in this way, he fixed his patient. So he sent the second guy to this psychotherapist. And after 1 month, he sees him. and realized that he's not getting fixed, but it's getting worse. When he goes to this wall and to that wall on the sidewalk, and ask him, what happened to you? Didn't the doctor fix you? He said, no, God damn that doctor. He got Brigitte Bardot from me and gave me an old truck. I have to drive to Shiraz. I use this story about censorship in Iran. There are times that some critics ask why Iranian writers couldn't be global writers, why they didn't get Nobel Prize or something like it. And I told them this story, that all Iranian writers, they are just like that guy. Once upon a time, we have Brigitte Bardot, but this regime got Brigitte Bardot from me and gave us an old truck that we have to drive in a long way. Okay. I have some stories because before we get to the main title, I need to tell some stories, a lot of stories maybe, about being an Iranian writer and how or why somebody like me is an Iranian writer, that I'm so proud of it. And because, I try to familiarize you why we are proud of being an Iranian writer in a maybe worse situation for writers and journalists in Iran. So I need to tell you some stories. It is about 1001 stories, but tonight I just read 1,000 of them for you. This is my first story. There are people in Iran whose job is to read and censor stories. Well, if people like me don't become writers, then those people will lose their jobs and won't be able to support their wife and children. So there must be writers to keep them employed. The second story. Not only in Iran, but in some countries around the world, there are people whose job is to kill writers or to arrest them and make them confess that they are spies of the US. Well, if there were no writers, who would these agents kill or torture so that they confess to being spies? Therefore, becoming a writer is providing humanitarian help to such people, because if there were no writers, then these people would kill or arrest and torture innocent people. This is another story. Totalitarian and dictatorial regimes corrupt language before they start corrupting power and money or economy. These days, dictators have learned not to speak against the freedom of speech. They all claim that their country is the freest country in the world, as Mr. Ahmadinejad. They all speak beautiful sentences about freedom. They even quote writers who have fought for the freedom of speech. Well, if there were no writers in these countries, where would the dictators find texts for their speech before the United Nations? They take advantage of language, they easily lie, and the power of television and radio helps them make their lies believable. What is interesting is that some people believe what the dictators say and cheer for them in such time when the poor language is used to make thousands of lies. One must write to prove that the word tree means tree, that the word cherry means cherry, and kiss means kiss, and freedom means being free to not lie. Therefore, writing in the darkness of dictatorship, when language is being dragged through corruption, is an art. You become a writer so that you can say, the dictator is naked. It is not important that you write a political story. It is important that you write an artistic story. If you write a beautiful story, you will feel that you are stronger than dictator. You will feel that you are stronger than the lie. You will feel that you are struggling to save your country's language from corruption. I don't know why the other writers in their countries or in exile became writers. I wish they had become mariachi so that I could be more famous. Myself, I become a writer so that I can say there are feelings in this world that cannot be expressed with ordinary sentences. Therefore, I write stories to express these feelings. And after each story, I realize that I have not managed to convey that feeling, and so I write another story. I became a writer because I was born in Iran. Because becoming a writer in Iran is very different than becoming a writer in places like the US or Europe. Becoming a writer in Iran is really wonderful. Sometimes it is like walking in a minefield. I served my military service during the long and useless Iran-Iraq war. It was sometimes necessary for us to move toward the Iraqi front lines by night to determine a plan of attack. When you walk in a minefield field, you hate the weight of your own body. You wish you were as light as a dandelion. Every step you take can be the step of your death. It is in this moment that you feel the existence of your feet. The same feet that on ordinary days, while walking, while running, you completely ignore. Therefore, you feel your own existence, your being, in the present tense. Taking a walk or perhaps dancing in a minefield. The next story is again a war story. I was once stationed at a very dangerous battlefront, a place where the Iraqi army had a clear view on our trenches. As a result, in daytime we had to try and stay in our trenches. During the long and hot summer days, staying in a trench where your hair rubs against the ceiling is not easy. Time passes slowly, boringly, like the grinding of a stone. It was during these days that I decided to write a story. It was the first love story that I wanted to write. In the violent environment of war, filled with blood and dust, thinking of a love affair is very comforting. It helps you forget. In those days, all the Western governments supported the Iraqi army. Therefore, their artillery, unlike the Iranian artillery, had no shortage of mortars and cannons. And they generously shot their mortar shells at us. While I wrote in my trench, I could hear the Iraqi mortar shells being fired. It would take about 3 seconds for a 120 millimeter mortar shell to reach our front line. If it landed on our trench, everyone inside would turn into chopped meat. So I had 3 seconds to add one more word to my story. One word in the space of life and death. One word that could be the last word of my life on a piece of paper. That could be the last word of my life on a piece of paper. In those 3 seconds, I understood the meaning and value of words very well. Which word, which adjective, which adverb is best for this scene in the story. One word can be all of life. One word that adding it to your story will make the story more beautiful, while a stupid mortal shell is on its way, and a small change in the direction of the wind can land it on your trench or send it to the bottom of the valley. This is how my flesh felt the value of every single word. My 9th story is my most important story. I clearly remember the first time I started to write. It was a fall morning. I was in 4th grade and I had decided to write my homework myself instead of my mother writing it for me. In the garden, composition. In the garden of the house, sitting on a carpet under the gentle Shiraz sun, I start to write, describe the season of autumn. To this day, the wonder and even the fear of discovering my ability to write and to come up with words that I never thought would come easily to me remains in my heart. To go along with what the teachers liked, with passionate words, I wrote about the yellow and orange leaves that fell dancing from the trees. I wrote about the music of the shepherd's flute and the sheep that happily grazed. And then I wrote about the beauty of the golden sun on the golden wheat field. And in the same tone, I wrote about the waves that the wind creates in the wheat field. And I wrote that the wheat field is forgivingly ready to be harvested. And I was sure that for the first time, I would get an excellent grade in composition. Therefore, I bravely volunteered to read my composition in class. As soon as I got to the sentence about the golden wheat, the teacher shouted, "Boy, wheat doesn't turn golden in the fall." I continued to read, and again, as soon as I read that the wheat field is ready to be harvested, the teacher yelled, "A stupid boy, wheat fields are not harvested in the fall." And he wrote a low grade at the bottom of the composition of my hope and pride and sent me to my chair with a lump in my throat. I know that a long time has passed since that day, and my wheat fields have been harvested before the fall. And many wheat fields have been harvested before the fall, and many wheat fields have gone toward the spring. But I continue to write about the pleasant autumn day, so that I can bring my own small wheat field to harvest in the fall. Whether golden or not, infested or healthy, whether it is it is a wheat field that I have created. And so many years have passed in writing, and with my writing, and they will probably continue to pass. When I look at my past, I have no regrets for the path that I have chosen and the way that I have lived. With all its pains and sorrows, I am content except for times when I remember how much I have been hurt by all the bitter and oppressive obstacles that shorten the life of a writer. And because I could have written more and more profoundly, and I did not. And let's jump to the main title. At the airport in Tehran, they thoroughly searched every part of my body and luggage twice. They even counted the money I had in my wallet. In Iran, I was a probable US spy who was leaving the country. At the airport in Istanbul, too, when they saw my Iranian passport, they took me and my family out of the line and again searched and questioned us. In Istanbul, I was a terrorist who wanted to go to New York. But entering New York was much easier. I was worried about a few bags of dried herbs that my mother had forced me to pack. I had told her that in the US they may mistake these for marijuana. They didn't, or perhaps they didn't see them. Iranians perceive being fingerprinted upon entry the US as an insult to their nationality. But I didn't mind leaving my fingerprints someplace. Well, in fact, I write so that I can leave the fingerprint of my existence someplace. I would have given them toe prints from my feet if they had asked for it. The same feet that I had survived from minefields. Anyway, I settled down in a new home and a beautiful office at Brown University. The first week went by easily. It was beautiful meeting sophisticated and artistic people, and people who did everything to solve any problems that my family and I faced. And it felt strange to be able to talk freely and comfortably with my friends in different parts of the US without fear of telephone being taped. Well, I guess that as an Iranian, my telephone calls may be monitored, but this was a far cry from that. In Iran, I had told a friend, look, my telephone isn't safe. When you want to talk about alcohol, talk in code. Otherwise, it is likely that we will both get a whiplashing. He called and mumbled a bit, and then, very intellectually, he said, Shahriyar, I have bought 5 bottles of that colorless lemon juice for your party. Come and pick it up. It was during the 2nd or 3rd month that I told myself, watching the new world is enough. You have to write. I had stashed in my suitcase and brought with me tens of my stories that I had no hope of publishing during the term of Mr. Ahmadinejad, and the obstacle and absolute insanity of censorship. There were also 2 half-finished novels and a thriller screenplay that seems to suit Hollywood. I told myself I should revise and prepare them, and then, with an patience that all Iranian writers have, sit and wait, hoping that censorship will come to its sense. but my heart wasn't in any of it. I couldn't understand why. Back in Iran, I would write from early evening until dawn when the sparrows would wake up in the sour orange trees. But in the US, I would sit in front of the computer. Everything was ready, but they had even installed Farsi font on my computer in my office. But time was passing. But in my hands and in my mind, I couldn't find the passion and enthusiasm to write. This English was killed me if censorship didn't. I couldn't even focus and concentrate on a story. The mysterious energy that would creep into my body in Iran, that would make me write madly, patiently, to take the finished difficult revisions, and even in the middle of the night to chase away sleep by constantly washing my face, seems to have left me. Not even a new idea would come to me, and consciously or unconsciously, I would go out with the excuse of taking care of something unimportant, so that I could free myself from my own reprimands. Yeah, colorless oranges. In Iran and at lectures in Europe, I had always discussed the question of why, contrary to those world writers who have written their masterpieces in migration, some Iranian writers who have for the most part carried the burden of immigration for political reasons, have not been able to succeed, or at least to repeat in the West the strength and beauty of what they had created in their homeland. To me, it was like a secret, like a dark destiny that Iranian writers in the West, with their painful loneliness and seclusion, have finally committed suicide, or some others have not written, and even before their death have even burned their memories so that only flames would read them. Tired of not writing and impatient, I would look at my fingers. I would see that they are ugly, thickest. The rain and the snow of winter would fall. I would walk slowly and sadly along the sidewalk of Benefit Street in Providence toward Brown University. I would see lively students who chirped like nightingales and energetic professors who went toward their destination, and I would avoid looking at them. They reminded me of my inability to write and of the brave Iranian students who were beaten with batons for fighting for their human rights, and who would be interrogated and tortured for months in grave-like solitary cells. Both these memories would make me sadder. At the time when an American real estate agent was showing us our small house on top of a hill, he had started as eloquently as a scholar to discuss the beauties of its decor and its view of a green space and the Rhode Island State House. I had thought to myself, in America, even the real estate agents who are known around the world as being con artists, as poet, as decent. We had been living in that house for 2 months when for the first time I walked down the slope and the stairs and to my surprise, suddenly discovered that the green space was hiding an old cemetery and an old abandoned church behind its massive trees and short stone wall. For us Iranians, a graveyard bears an ominous sense, and the crowds come. I constantly thought, what is the secret? It is distance from the Farsi. Is it distance from the Farsi language and culture that is the cause of an Iranian writer's inability and failure? Is it because of years of writing under the pressure of censorship and the fear of being arrested that when we arrive at an open space and freedom, we lose our motivation to write? Have we not gotten used to using alchemy to create the golden energy and courage of creativity out of humiliation and threats, out of helplessness and poverty? So much so that when we are no longer in darkness, we no longer know what to write about. Are we not like the fighter who has returned from the war front and can no longer live a peaceful and ideal life like everyone else? Have the ancientness of the Farsi language and the eternal dictatorship not made the metaphors and symbols become more complicated and more Iranian from one century to the next, to weave into each other and make the language of our literature different from that of the rest of the world? Among us, only those who migrated when they were young have managed to continue along their path, or those who first began writing in the West. And I would constantly review successful Western works in my perplexed mind to find how they differed with our own literature. The depressing winter snows and rains ended, and the beautiful spring of Benefit Street reveals its flowers. I relish the lashing of the rain. Flowers whose names I didn't know and were therefore more of a flower to me. They were more than flower to me. Made me sadder because they were not for me. And drinking a few bottles of colorless lemon juice didn't help either. I had been and continued to be invited to universities, and all of them I had talked about censorship in Iran. Everyone was curious to know what the mechanism of censorship was in Iran. I also had a few funny stories to tell about the stupidity of censorship. Until one day, when I get fed up and retorted that I got fed up and retorted that you all ask me about the censorship of Iranian literature and never ask, well, what is this literature and what has it achieved? My lectures and interviews were growing more blunt, and censorship in Iran was becoming more barbaric, and I felt that the bridge to my return were crumbling behind me. I didn't want, but as a writer, I couldn't keep silence when, for example, 5,000 books were gathering dust at the censorship bureau waiting for a publishing permit. While books that spread ignorance, lies, and fanaticism were being published with government support in 100,000 print runs and were being sent to schools and mosques. Until the time came from the literary festival at Brown, I thought to myself, I have to do something. I have to do something new. But what? A story. But the stories that I had started and were half written were not suitable. Until finally my ambivalence paid off. I found my idea. A story about censorship of a story. One that illustrates an Iranian writer struggling to write a beautiful Iranian love story. And while writing this story, he explains that in an Islamic Iran, simple scenes that generally take place between a boy and a girl who are in love cannot be written. And to show what literary techniques and metaphors he uses to pass his story through the wall of censorship. A story about collapsing of a story. I started to write. I was surprised to see that it was progressing well. I told a friend that it seems I can also write during daylight. He said, at the hour you are writing, it is nighttime in Iran. You still have your nightly Iranian habit or track. In the second stage, I realized that for the first time in my life, I am using humor in my story. I thought, whatever you are welcome. Having been away from Iran for a sufficient length of time and having looked at my beloved land from a distance had given me the opportunity to see that in all the bitter and bloody disaster after the revolution, there is also a layer of dark and bitter humor. I was seeing how comically the Iranian character crashes, how stupidly the most basic human rights have been and are being denied even in stories. And I wrote. The first text was no more than 15 pages. It was translated and it was successful at the Brown Festival. I gained more energy. After years of bad luck with the translation of my stories, I had found a knowledgeable translator, creative and in love with Iranian literature. And I was thinking that this work is a novel. I told Sarah Khalili that there is no publisher and no agent. We therefore can't have any hope of the work even being published. And I hesitantly asked, if I start writing the novel, are you man enough to translate it? She said, I'm not man enough, but I am woman enough. Instead of bragging, I'm woman enough. Instead of bragging, write it if you can. And again I started. I told myself it's time to open the old wounds and to speak openly. And one after the other, my memories and suppressed emotions in Iran were coming to me. I remember that the collection of my best stories went from one publisher to another for 5 years and was waiting in the censorship bureau. And for me, it had become an infected wound whose poison was getting into my blood. I remember the difficult nights I writing and struggling over words and metaphors and trying to find a way to write images that from the perspective of censorship were political or against public morality in such a way that I would not betray. Sorry, but I remember the difficult nights of writing and struggling over words and metaphors and trying to find a way to write images that from the perspective of censorship were political or against public morality in such a way that I would not betray my own literary principles, and at the same time censorship would not notice them. From the point of view of censorship, I had started writing a literary scene and crime. Therefore, Mr. Petrovich, from the novel Crime and Punishment, should pick in on this novel too. Like Dostoevsky's love of gambling, I too had started a gamble, but not of the same kind as him. Iran is full of aces. I dealt the first ace. We gave the first 50 pages of the novel that had been written and translated to George Borchards' agency. He liked it. A few weeks later, Sarah gave me the news that Knopf has accepted the work based on just these 50 pages. I would be asked, "Are you happy?" And I didn't know what to answer. I had regained my confidence, but in writing every word and sentences, my question was, with that prose, with which images should I work my multi-layered forms so that without sacrificing my dreams and literary standards, my Farsi language starts to speak English too. It was a difficult time, and it was an anxious time, and so it left me no room for joy. The novel was progressing, and it was getting to places where the characters were revolting against me, and they found me guilty of self-censoring and barring them from seeing each other more freely so that they could at least touch each other's hands. I struggled to make them understand that in a country where it is illegal for a girl and a boy who are not related, if they casually walk off together in the street, they will be arrested by one of the patrols from the campaign against social corruption. I tried to come up with safe and creative solution for them to meet. For example, I inspired in them that if you sit next to each other in the waiting area of an emergency room in a hospital, the patrols will not grow suspicious of you, and the like. They asked a man who stuttered, "Do you always stutter?" He said, "Not always, just when I speak." They asked me, "Do you always forget words just when you need them?" I say, "Not always, just when I speak in English." In high school, I would often hand in my English quiz sheets to the teacher completely blank. And I would tell my classmates that learning English means serving British imperialism, which has played a destructive role in our history. Well, some of us Iranians hide our laziness and lack of foresight behind political slogans. This was another one of my problems that I had to solve. English language. There are many Farsi good stories that were lost in translation. At times when we compared the Farsi text against the English translation, I would realize that I cannot so quickly make up for my shortcoming in English vocabulary, and the question of whether words have the same nuance and implicit connotations that I want. So many discussions with Sarah showed me that she has an artistic talent in translation. So my job was to try and feel the syntax of English language and its difference with the syntax of Farsi. But now the evening has come to an end, and I too have to end my story. In short, the writing and editing of censoring an Iranian love story took 2.5 years, and today it is in process of being published in 11 different languages. Thank you.
Answer some questions. You have time.
Yeah, I'm at your service. Yes, sir.
What is the greatest achievement in your view of Iranian literature?
Would you please repeat? I have a problem.
In your opinion,
Yeah.
what is the greatest achievement of Iranian literature?
Greatest achievement, yeah. I think The Blind Owl by Sadiq Hidayat is one of them. And in fiction, I mean. And hardly I can remember a real achievement. Although I'm sure that there are a pure literature in Iran, a sort of diaspora literature in Iran. But as I try to talk about it, maybe the problem is the translations.
Shahriyar, could you speak in the microphone?
Oh, sorry. So, Blind Owl in fiction, maybe Tuban, the meaning of the night. Recently, there are another one in Europe, particularly. I can make an example, make examples. Bamdad Khomar. I can't remember. Help me, doctor. The translation of Bamdad Khomar by Fatane in English.
The day after.
No, not the day after. The day after drunkenness, yeah? Yes. Something like it, yeah. And in non-fiction works, that I think it is fiction, Mr. Milani's book about Hovida, or the last prime minister of Shiraz. It was so successful, I think so. And it is the beginning, I think. We Iranian writers, we are learning how to deal with translation and publishers in West.
So there are different theories about the times in which one can create a masterpiece, right? A shahkar. That some people think that basically at the time of horror and sort of when you are in so much pain or when you are in hijran or something like that, all the pressure that you feel is a really good resource for you in sense of creating, right? So we have people who are from countries that are in so much like oppression and it's not like in any sense a place that we think you might be able to live, and then they create really beautiful things. And then at the same time, there's another theory that says, well, even in a democratic situation and at the time of Fasad or when you're happy, basically, you can create masterpieces. So when you were talking about when you came to the United States and you were struggling with not having ideas, I was again thinking about that is that really the case that, I mean, you have more chances to create masterpiece when you are under pressure?
Yeah, but I think it is so delicate to talk about these things. You know, somehow the censor machine lacks the story that because of censorship, because of the pressure, and because of the, for instance, the censors' efforts, forces that, if, for instance, Iranian writers don't write about sexuality or something like it, they are writing masterpieces. You know, it's totally wrong. But I think the experiences that a writer can gain are so helpful for writing a masterpiece. And when we are looking at the life of writers that they made and they have written masterpieces in literature of the world, we will see that most of them have many adventures, many experiences in their life. Not only suffer, or not only just experience, happy experience or suffering. It helps to see the stories that they are hidden in the first layer of the life in this world. Yes?
Is there censorship in the universities in Iran that prevent wet books from the West to be taught?
Yeah, sure. You know?
So you have censors that censor. Do they teach Western literature?
No, not.
They don't teach it anymore.
Actually, they don't teach Iranian contemporary literature in universities. They don't believe that they are literature. It's forbidden for the teachers to talk, for instance, about Iranian great contemporary great writers, for even in literature faculties. So it is forbidden to talk about it. Somehow, for instance, talk about maybe there were some courses about world literature, but all of them are classic. For instance, it's not possible for a teacher to teach about, for instance, James Joyce or Faulkner. It's so stupid. I have a story about it. You know, for many years, we Iranian writers, particularly Iranian writers, we was waiting for the translation of Odyssey of James Joyce. And one Iranian, a good translator, did it. And on that time, Islamic reformists were on the power, Mr. Khatami, and they tried to be a little bit nice with writers and translators on that time and be sane somehow. And the censor machine, the censor, it was a sort of proposal. They told the translator that we can't let you publish the Molloy chapter in Ulysses because it's so against Islam. But if you publish this part, this sexy part, in Italian language, in Persian translation, we can handle it. We can stand it somehow. So you can imagine how they are looking to the literature. Yeah.
Could you tell us more about your life in Shiraz and whether or not being a Shirazi has had an impact on your writing?
You want it in Shirazi accent? Kaka? Somehow it was beautiful living in Shiraz. I was sort of, right on that era, I was the chief of maybe the biggest library in Shiraz. When I said biggest library, don't compare it to libraries in the United States. It is just a library with 20,000 books, for instance. And because of signing the writer's declaration that it was named 134, or Iranian Writers' Declaration, something like it, against censorship, they exiled me to another library that it was in Hafiziyeh. Hafiziyeh is the place that the tomb of Hafiz, our greatest poet, is there. And it is a beautiful place there, particularly in the springs. And I was so lucky that I exiled there. And on that time, I felt the heaviness of my being because I was involved to publishing a literary journal named Thursday Evening. I was so happy. We had many difficulties to publish it. Money and find paper, find good stories. And on that time we tried to support Iranian new generation, young writers and young poets. And I was so happy because I could help them. They could see the first, the publishing of their stories or poems in a magazine. And it was banned, unfortunately. Yeah, I liked that time. But the time, days and nights get darker and darker. The last years that I was living in Iran, there was no hope for publishing even a book that is censored. There were many books that they were published or reprinted many times in Islamic regime, and they banned it again. So they were bitter. There are very bitter memories of that time and happy memories at that time. I felt that I'm useful. Being there helped me to feel that being useful. And I don't know. Right now, I feel that I did a good job to come outside. As I wrote, as I talk about it, looking to my beloved country from a distance helped me to know it maybe better. Yeah.
There was a novel, not so much of a novel, but by Betty Mahmoudi.
Yeah.
Not Without My Daughter. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've read it or not. And if you have, can you share some views and
I think if it would be right, the writer would be right and didn't lie. It's just a memoir, it's not literature. And somehow the picture, the images that it gave to the Western readers from Iran, somehow they are right. There are some kind of people in Iran. But unfortunately, the way that it shows Iran is not right, I think so. There are many educated, sophisticated people in Iran, not like that doctor. As I remember, the location of the novel is in Qom, someplace like it, a religious city in Iran, and so religious and foolish people. All of them are like it. I think it's not a good novel. It's not. I didn't like it somehow. Yeah.
I've noticed in exile there are quite a few more women novelists from Iran than men. Is that the case in Iran as well, or is that just abroad?
You mean that Iranian women are more active from men?
There are more well-known
Yeah.
novels from women.
yeah.
than from men.
Yeah.
They've been translated.
In literature, yeah. It is like a miracle, yeah. As much as Islamic regime suppress women and try to keep women in the houses, in the kitchens, on the other hand, the women writers, the women poets, women filmmakers make a sort of a huge progress in quality and in how many of them, that they are. For instance, there were times that I had a workshop on in fiction, and there were times that three-fourths of students were girls and women. It was wonderful, and I adore them. I admire them. They are so brave. There are times that Iranian women are braver than men. I think so. Yes.
So about the first question that the gentleman asked about the fact that Iranian literature has not been so successful in the fiction, not in poetry, there is this idea that it originally belongs to Mario Vargas Llosa, the Peruvian writer, and I think it was very important about Iranian literature, and has nothing to do with the phenomenon of censorship. The idea that he talks about in the book Perpetual Orgy, which is in that book he's talking about his ideas about novel, when he's talking about Flaubert's Madame Bovary.
Mm-hmm.
He says that in the countries or in the cultures that there is this concept of certainty as an effect of some traditional phenomena, for example, religion.
Yeah.
There cannot be good fiction. There can be good poetry, there can be good ethics, but there cannot be good fiction. And the way that he argues about it is that in fiction, the thing that is the resource of the characters in fiction and the situation that they are put in, so that we see their behavior and their thoughts and their ideas and the things that they do and they do not do. They all came from the fact that there is this doubt and there is this decision that you have to make, and nothing is certain, and everything in the world and in our minds is sort of tinted with doubt and with uncertainty, which is something that we lack in our culture, at least we used to, because our culture, like some other cultures, they don't have good fiction either, we are full of this certainty, or at least we used to be, and everything, there was a theory, there was this whole religious thing that was the answer to all of our questions, and all the questions were apparently solved, and there was an answer to them, so we knew what we should do, what we shouldn't do, at least up to 50 years ago. And there is still this certainty in our culture, but it's going to be vanished, I think, I hope, soon. Gradually, when these new generations who are raised with doubt about everything are coming to the world. They raise doubt about their government, they raise doubt about their beliefs, they raise doubt about even the morality of the society. And that could put these people, and therefore the characters of the story written by the writers from the new generation, or the writers who saw this new generation, in a place that they can actually build a good fiction. So I think if you as a writer can tell us about these ideas about the new generation and these uncertainties, and how you as a person who read sometime before had this experience, want to deal with these new uncertainties that has been raised up in our country, and you want to employ them in your fiction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There are many debates about why Iran, such as Iranian literature are not worldwide. Although I think there are good stories, particularly in short stories. Iran literature, Farsi literature is successful. About the novel, there are many debates. Yes, dictatorship. The dictators, the long periods of dictatorship in Iran. They try to taught us, to learn, to teach out us that the people are the same. There is no difference between people. They try to force us to believe that there is no individuality. I think there is no difference between a religious regime and an ideological regime like a communist regime. When you are looking at what they did, there are so much similarity between them. The words or slogans maybe were different, but the acts are particularly in censorship or dealing with literature or art. There were times that in Iran, for instance, the best novels or best short stories collections were published around 3,000, in 3,000. And there were times, on that time, the secret police of Iran tries to kill writers, wiretapping, and so much jobs they did against writers. And I ask myself, why? 3,000, and the readers are somebody who knows everything about the regime, about dictatorship and censor. Why they are focused on literature so heavily and strongly? The answer is that you talk about it. The literature tries to show the reader that there are many points of view in this world. In my point of view, it is black. In your point of view, it should be gray. It should be yellow. There are characters. There are individualism in the society, because there are individualism in the novels. When we are writing about a character that apparently it is, for instance, a bad person in a novel, I, as a writer, should love him or her, should respect him as a character. So it teach me that look at the world as people and as individuals, not as black and white. The way that I talk about looking at the world in a tragic way, just that it is happening in literature. And I think Iranians, particularly young generation in literature, they are finding it out somehow, and they all feel it. You know, democracy, novel, they all both comes together. And because of it, maybe there were times that we Iranians committed revolution, and then we couldn't gain to democracy, because in our mind, uncertainty hasn't enough roots. But in literature, I think we can be hopeful. Yeah.
In the presence of severe censorship in Iran, what do you contribute the success of the film as a medium?
The point is that the movies were censored in Iran as well.
Right.
That's the point.
And yet they seem to be able to transcend that obstacle. And
one of the reasons maybe it would be on language. The language of a movie is pictorial, yeah? So it's not based on the language, and it's not based on the translation. The audiences watch it. And if you make a review on the Iranian movies that they were awarded in the recent era, you can see that they have a simple theme in it. They are not as much as complicated as our literature. And maybe because of censorship, because of many, many reasons, Iranian literature is so much complicated, is so much personal. And because of it, it's not easy for this literature to have a dialogue with the world. But the movie, because of its language, could be easily for a director to talk with the world. It is easier, I think so. Yeah.
First of all, congratulations. The New Yorker just picked your book as one of the 10 best. That is no easy feat. So, did you know that?
New York Times,
No,
New Yorker, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
They're very picky. So.
Thank you.
Bravo for that. I was just curious, are young people in Iran reading right now? Are they trying to read the books that people could read 40 years ago?
Yeah, I told you that it is like a tsunami in Iranian, in young Iranian people. The way that they try to write stories or poems. I'm not telling that all of them are literature. Mm-hmm. Just because of censorship, they don't have access to many good literary books. They don't have access. But they are trying. The point is that they are trying. And they are more and more than my generation. If before the generation before my generation, if you count the success writers, you can say 20, for instance. In my generation, you can say 50, 100 succeeded writers and poets. In a new generation, you can say this one and this one and this one. There are so many. But right now there is no magazine, no literary magazine, no any places that they can improve their talents. Sorry.
I'm just curious, coming from Iran and from a different society with different rules and a different way of which your life is, people's lives are sort of work or constrained or bound. How do you see at least literature in the United States? How do you see society and how do you see people's preoccupations with culture in the United States? Because one thing that worries me as a reader, as an individual, is that there's an enormous amount of entertainment, and when I think about someone who writes, I wonder sometimes whether the writers ever. Well, I mean, it's just a very big industry, marketed, and there's venues and avenues for people to publish. Does it seem? What does our society seem like to you? And does it seem like? And have you at any moment had any sort of paralyzation, or have you been affected by this transition from living in a state where the opportunity to write is very, very constrained to one in which you're actually encouraged to write? And how has that been for you, and how do you see writing, or how do you see art in the United States? And does it worry you as a person, as a human being, for possibly the future of Iran, for possibly for the, in relation to the internet, to information, to entertainment?
Yeah. The first point that I can point out is that on the contrary of the darkened, progressed, undeveloped picture that you can see in American or Western media about Iran, there are a pure culture there. And you can't believe that how much Iranian writers and intellectuals and readers are familiar, for instance, to American literature. There is a great, admirable effort, the movement of translation from other languages to Farsi language. Not only American literature, but also the literature from the other part of the world. So somehow I can say that Iranian intellectuals are familiar with the Western literature more than Western readers, you know. But yeah, the point is that, for instance, my experience of publishing this book could be a story. There are many, many problems that I couldn't predict them on that time. I didn't know about them. For instance, the simple one is, in Iran, there isn't no copyright role, or nobody think about copyright. In this novel, I use just 2 sentences of Lorca, a poem of Lorca. One of my characters said it in a scene. After there was a contract with a Spanish publisher, they told me that I have to pay to Lorca's family. And I said, wow, look at it, an Iranian writer in the United States is going to pay to Lorca's family? Great, okay, I will pay it, I like it. There are many things like it that we can't predict. We don't know the rules of publication, and the rules of media, and something. For instance, what's the name of this showman? Stuart, the family name is John Stewart. He invited me to his show. I said, no, I'm not the man of this job. I know that he is so smart and it's so funny, and I don't like to sit there as a and I couldn't deal with him with my English language. If he let me to talk in Farsi language, let's go. But I said no. I said, I know that everybody told me that you have to take it. It is a good advantage for your book. I said, no, I can't. It's not my job. And the other point is, the other face of this picture is that in Iran culture, in Iranian culture, there isn't anything like it. We are not familiar with it. You know, because everything in Iran, in Iranian media, it's, help me, Dr. Milani, Muqaddas. I forgot. Yeah, everything is holy, yeah. I can't say it. So nobody, for instance, make a joke about Ahmadinejad in media, but people do it. But so it was so I feel so much uncomfortable to be in show. Although I like it, there are many things that we couldn't predict them. They came to us, and maybe after a few years later, I can answer your question better. You know.
I was wondering whether you will publish your censorship book in Farsi as well.
It's impossible right now. Here, I'm thinking about it, but unfortunately, publishing in Farsi language in West, there are, unfortunately, I think it's not a real publishing. You know, it is published in circulation about 500. Yeah. And as I heard about publishing books and magazines, such a book, you know, maybe there would be such book that they will have or would have more circulation. But a novel like it, I'm sure that it would be published in 500. And I think it's not real publishing. And unfortunately, these 500 wouldn't find Iranian readers, unfortunately. We are not used to read.
We have
time for one more question.
Yeah, okay.
7:30.
Yeah.
You mentioned that young people are reading a lot in Iran.
Yeah.
Are they smuggling books back and forth, or is it electronic media, or how are they doing it?
Which is another novel that I have to write. There is many books are banned, but they can borrow and hand books together. Iranian people are so great in internet and in computer matters. I can tell you bravely that, for instance, we didn't pay not even a cent for Windows in Iran. Yeah, we have it everywhere, and our friends, and they are so smart to using proxies to pass through the filters, and every day it is a struggle between Iranian young people and the regime in internet, and they won, and they win. Yeah. Thank you very much.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.